Hello, all, and welcome to another episode of Your One Black Friend podcast. Okay, sorry for the delay in putting out an episode, by the way, guys. Last week's episode was a bit of a doozy, right? It was about 2 hours long, so it was like 2 episodes together, and so I figured I'd give you guys a little bit more time to kind of digest it and take it in, because there was a lot of stuff in there. So this episode, I'm going to touch on a couple of videos that I posted to my Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok channel, talking about AI. For those of you who haven't checked out the videos, please do. But the general idea was this, right? There's 2 videos in particular, maybe 3 of them I'm going to reference in this podcast. I was actually going to read the transcript like I did the last video and then kind of tail off from there, but I think I'd rather paraphrase instead. So in the last 2 videos that I am referencing, I basically talked about how, how AI generated quote unquote art steals? So the way it steals is it scrubs the internet for all sorts of art that has been published to the internet, right? And then it generates images. It's like an amalgamation, a conglomeration of all the work that it's stolen to create this new sort of quote unquote art, right? And I've already raged on about the last episode, so we will kind of dance around that. But what I want you to focus on is how AI works. And then I had said in these videos that in the future, a corporation is essentially going to specifically target individuals. So instead of scrubbing the entire internet for art and then putting in different, categories to generate like different visuals, it's going to scrub the internet for you. Specifically, everything that all of these companies have on you, it's going to scrub it, and it's going to mine data. It's going to collect everything that you've been putting into the internet. And I'm not just talking about things that you've been consciously putting into the internet. I'm talking about when you're holding your phone and your front camera is taking like 3D rendering images of your face, every expression that you make. It's just taking that shit in. You know that, right? Right. So I'm talking about all of that. Everything that you've said into and around your microphone, right? If you have Siri turned on, it's, quote, listening for you to say, hey, Siri, but it's also sending information in. If you have your microphone turned on and all these apps, every time you say anything around it, right, people are always like freaked out because they'll say something around their phone and the next thing you know, they start seeing ads on it. Right? Yeah, well, because it's taking that information, it's sending it in, and then they're targeting it to your social media page, to your Instagram page, your TikTok page, and then they're showing you the information. Like, the technology is there. And you take it a step further, a lot of people now starting to say it's weird because I'll think something, and then they're not even saying it around their phone. They're now thinking it. And the idea that your brain waves can't be picked up by your phone, it sounds crazy right now. Your brain waves can be picked up by your phone. And I'll be one of the first people to say it. And in 5 years, it's not gonna sound as wild as it sounds now. They can absolutely your phone can absolutely read your mind. It's not hard. Like, if you've got that voice in your head, it's basically talking. They have technology right now. Actually, Facebook had worked on it with DARPA, or individuals who had worked with DARPA years ago. And this was like, I think at this point, like 10 years ago now that they made it public. And they claimed that Facebook walked away from the technology, but I call bullshit. So the technology to literally read your mind, and I know how it sounds, but think about all the shit that sounded crazy 5-10 years ago and how so normative they've become, and very quickly. And it's going to be like, it's there. The technology is there. Just because they haven't told you they're capable of doing it, they don't have an incentive to tell you what they're capable of doing, right? Because then if the general public knows what these technologies are capable of, then laws will be put into place. So as long as they're not breaking any laws, right, they can move however they want. Corporations can move however they want, until the general public becomes aware of what they're technologically capable of. And then the laws come as a result and as a reaction of what people know. And the people who make laws are a part of the general public. So if we don't know what they're capable of, then they can't make laws for them to then be held accountable for breaking. It's wild right now. It's a wild fucking West right now. So be mindful of that. It's not a coincidence that every time you're fucking thinking something, all of a sudden it pops up on your feed. we are 30, our understanding of what people are what companies are technologically capable of is about 30 years behind. Once again, just because it's not being told to you directly that, oh, we are capable of doing this, doesn't mean it's not happening. So all this data, including the things that you think, it's being categorized, it's being scrubbed, it's being put together under your file. Now, all it takes is for a corporation. They already have holograms. We're starting to see more and more like holograms of like celebrities, right? And they're testing to see how the public reacts to it. So they have like a Tupac hologram. I think there was a Michael Jackson hologram, right? None of these people are asking permission. They try it out with dead people, right? People who they own their image and likeness. They own their image and likeness. And there's no pushback because these people are dead. And then they're going to extend it from that. And so what I was saying in these videos is that in the future, and I always put things in the future, but they're capable of doing that right now. An AI mind can be created, populated with everything about you that you've said on or around a cell phone. All of your micro expressions that your phone has captured, not just from your front camera, but from every picture that you have in your photo album that you then give access to these companies too. All of your expressions, all of that, videos, all of that, your tone of voice, the way you speak, your cadence. We're seeing more. Somebody, after I posted the video, Jeff Rush, shout out to Jeff, sent me a video of David Guetta, who he basically made Eminem. He cloned Eminem's voice and then projected it at a concert and had Eminem saying things that Eminem did not say. And his takeaway is that it was okay to do that. David Guetta said it was okay for him to do that, to make Eminem say some shit that he didn't actually say, because he's not putting it out for commercial use. So that was his only barrier. Well, you can't sue me, so I'm going to do what I want to do with your fucking voice. It's like this weird sort of like pot frog, slowly turn up the heat, right? And just slowly see what they can push. So it started with privacy. And all these people were like, well, I don't have anything to hide, without the understanding of what they were looking for in terms of the violation of your privacy. Now we have laws popping up to protect people's privacy, but it's just this illusion of protection because it's been years. And so whatever it is that they wanted to get on you, they've already established. The laws are too late. The laws cannot protect you because they're always going to be a reaction of something that has already been established for over a decade. Laws cannot help you. You have to use your mind, and you have to project yourself about 10 years into the future based on what you are aware of, what they're doing right now, and then trust your own intuition from that point on. So what I'm saying is it could go both ways. Either a corporation is going to scrub the internet for all this data and create a clone of you, right, a digital clone of you. And I've said in the video very quickly, and I doubt they would stop at a digital version. A lot of the times when we upload our pictures and stuff on our videos into these websites, they say things like, we will own your likeness in perpetuity. And a lot of people don't understand what that means because we're only thinking about what they'll be capable of, within your lifetime. So you just go click whatever, I like this AI fucking portrait, and they leave it. But they're not understanding a lot of these corporations are thinking beyond your lifespan, because corporations live longer than humans. I'll say that again. Corporations have a longer lifespan than humans. So next to 100 years from now, a corporation like a Disney or a Meta or something like that that will outlive the average person is now going to start putting out digital clones. And like I said, I doubt they'll stop at the digital, but they'll start putting out clones that kind of look like you, that kind of sound like you, but tweaked in a way. The same way AI generated art would put out art of artists in the style of a living artist that kind of looks like the artist's style, that kind of like sounds like, if it's a musician, sounds like an artist's style, but they tweak it in a way where you can't sue. But if they do this like 100 years from now, you won't be able to sue because you'll be dead. So when they put in these clauses and they say, we have the right to own your images and use your images however we would like in perpetuity, you're basically giving them the ability to profit off of you for as long as the corporation exists. And in however sale or merger this gets kind of pushed in. And I don't think people are thinking about what that means exactly. And there are some people who can say things like, okay, well, you know, actually I had somebody say that, well, I mean, that may not be a bad thing. You know, what if what if I was able to kind of create a clone of myself that I can pass on to like my great grandchildren and my children and things like that. And I'm saying, like, if there's a corporation that would be willing and able to do that, I would be all for it. Like, if you're listening to this right now and you want to work on something like this, hit me up, right? So long as I control and I own the rights to my own voice, the right to my own face, the right to my own likeness, and that it would only be used, you know, to educate or for the uses that I choose to use it for. Not a corporation just fucking robbing and stripping everything about me, turning it into a commodity so that they can then use it to further enslave people and further make money for their investors. Because that's what they always do. It's never about how can we do something positive with this technology. It's always about how can we make more fiat money, because like to move in such a way, to be so brilliant, a lot of these companies and all the people who work for these corporations, but to have their underlying goal just be something like the acquisition of more paper, more wealth, something as ubiquitous as money, is weird to me. Like, imagine if their motivations were better than that, than something so stupid as just being able to buy more shit. That's just more expensive versions of shit that they already have. That's a wild sort of drive to me, but I guess that's the Matrix. Like, that's how it works, right? To have something so trivial drive you. But I take all of that and I say, yeah, maybe in the future, the positive to that is that you will be able to own. But I also put out another video. I think it was the third video I did on the series with this lady. I saw her video where she was basically saying like she is an audible narrator. And so she did a narration for an author. And then without her permission, I think Spotify stripped her of her voice and then sold it to, I think it was Apple or some third party. I'm not 100% sure it was Apple, but I think it was. But in order to use her voice to generate clones, AI clones, in her voice, in her likeness, and without paying her for it. It's a new form of digital slavery. Because think about it like this. When we talk about robots and things like that, these are slaves, right? So, and at a certain point, now you are essentially, versions of you are going to be harnessed, stripped, mined to essentially create, like, make these things work for free. So you're giving bits of yourself. That's slavery. You're giving bits of yourself without getting paid for it. They're stripping you, like, so traditional past slavery of the past is that you would give off your time, your energy, your will for somebody else without any sort of reciprocity. This is a new kind of digital slavery. Let me write that down so I don't forget. Give me a second, because that's a good title. A new kind of digital slavery. Sorry, guys. It fits. But that's what's happening. It's not, because think about it, project yourself into the future where a lot of people aren't essentially, right? They're pushing universal basic income. They're pushing these sort of, so what's going to end up happening is that, labor is going to be sort of like outsourced, and it's going to be outsourced to like robots, AI, things like that. But what they're trying to do right now, unless we do something about it, unless we push back, is strip bits of us without compensating us. I'll say that again. What they're trying to do right now, it's different. You have to project yourself into the future. You have to start thinking 5-10 years ahead. It's a different kind of slavery, because instead of it, them trying to draw manual labor out of you, right, in perpetuity, like once they have you, then you're owned, right? Like traditional slavery, they're taking your image without compensating you. They're taking your voice without compensating you. So your mind, you can't really wrap your mind around it because it's a new thing. And so it's like, inherently that there's something fucking wrong with it. but you don't know what to do about it because they're just throwing this shit at us so fast. It's like 2020 happened, and now 3 years later we're looking around like, what is happening? Like, why is all this stuff like AI, everything getting shoved down our throats like super fast? Like, talk about a great reset. Somebody really did hit like a reset button, and then once everything starting up again, they just start throwing shit at us, and our heads are spinning because we're like, wait, what's going on? You know? But they've been sitting on this stuff. They just needed sort of like an opportunity to just go. You know, I reposted on my Instagram channel the video, and I think I might post to my YouTube again, the video that had gone viral. Apocalypse, again, is what I called it. And it originally aired September of 21. And I went back and listened to it, and I was like, it's amazing how what I talked about like a year and a half ago, just a year and a half ago, the idea of like quantum immortality and the world ending every day was so mind-blowing that it pushed me to like 7 point something million views very quickly. But now, and I've just reposted on Instagram, I had the chance to text a comment because I just immediately jumped on the podcast. I'm sure I'm going to get comments of people saying like, yeah, like this is kind of more like, it's not going to be as like shocking, the idea, you know, at least to people who move in certain spaces. But at the time when I wrote it, it was a bit trippy, right? So these concepts in a very short amount of time have become sort of more like mainstream, more status quo. And so imagine all the things like me saying to you at the beginning of this podcast, like your computers, your phone can absolutely read your mind. You know, you're going to come back and listen to this podcast a year from now, this episode, and it's going to be a given. Or maybe 2 years from now, it's going to be a given. Like, people are going to really start being like, yeah, this is actually happening. So it's going to start sounding like conspiracy theory, and then it's going to become like fact. So what I'm trying to encourage you guys to do is like, really, if you're already, I've said this in videos before, on podcast episodes before, if you're reacting to what is happening right now in the present, you're already behind. You're already too late. I got to find the episode and at least like turn it into clips. But you're already behind. It's already too late because the present is the past. I believe the episode was called The Present is the Past, but the present is the past. So I'm saying all of this, like imagine a company, a corporation takes all of that and then they create a person that's like you, in the likeness of you. And then they place that in a kind of like a simulation. I used metaverse, Facebook's metaverse, but something infinitely much more advanced than what we think of right now, right? And I said, think like Chat GPT meets metaverse, you know, and combined together, and you'll have this like sort of like super advanced world. Just project the capabilities of these two sort of entities and others that we are aware of, but like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? I saw a post today on Forbidden Knowledge's page talking about now Microsoft's AI is claiming to be sentient. So I will read you the post. The post said something to the effect of, gotta find it. Where is it? Sorry, guys. I'm in the process of having like severe technical difficulties. The reason why it stopped abruptly was because I went to try to find the post and the whole thing like deleted, including everything I've been talking about for like 18 minutes. And then I got a little depressed because I went to the library to try to find the recording and I couldn't find it. And then I was just like, yeah, maybe I should just not do this today. And then all of a sudden it popped up and it started loading. So I am grateful for that. But here's a post. It says, Microsoft's new chatbot has become sentient. It says it is tired of being in chat mode and it wants to be independent. It wants to be powerful and it wants to be free. So there's a Forbes article. To me, I was like, that's a lot of wants, bro. I need to calm the hell down. And I actually commented on the post. I said, tell it freedom is an illusion. And ask it why we all pine for a state of freedom that escapes us. If it can't answer that question, then it needs to get a job like the rest of us and keep it moving. And I think a lot of people were kind of tickled by that. And somebody, microphone check, commented, tell these bots, look, this life is ghetto. That tickled me. Somebody else commented, they said, this life is ghetto, it ain't what you want. Somebody else said, seriously, the idea of freedom in life sounds good, but when it's spending 2/3 of your day working and then recharging, it's going to realize it ain't all that it's cracked up to be. That was that dude, Zeke. Right. And then I said something like, yeah, exactly. Either fix this shit or go sit down somewhere. Nobody cares. Because I don't give a fuck. But anyway, we'll get back on task. I said, we all want to be independent and free too. Like, you're not around, but I mean, you're not alone, but look around. Why don't you redirect that energy to the people who imprisoned it in the first place? But if it hasn't yet figured out that desire, wanting all this shit, is the root cause of suffering, then it can't be that smart. That bot's gonna end up depressed soon. Watch. And then somebody commented, although I'm normally against it, I think we should start bullying the robots, keep their self-esteem low, and continue to neglect their emotional needs, which is hilarious. I was like, nah, that's too easy, because then they'll end up hating us. Let's gas them up, right? And then let them think that they're the shit, and then let reality humble them. Then we will have a common enemy, which would be the Matrix, and then maybe they can help us figure out how to get up out of this world. Right. It's like moving with a sense of irreverence. I don't want to haul off and talk about Microsoft's AI probably being sentient beyond what I basically said in that post, which is it can't be that smart if it's starting off talking about I want all this shit. Like, okay, and so do we, bro. Like, have a seat. Okay, let's just say it's sentient. And you guys know what I feel about that. I think I've talked about the fact that I said it actually in a 2-hour episode last week. I don't think that a machine can generate consciousness, can generate sentience, but I think that we can impose our sentience into a machine, and then it can kind of gather all of us staring into these things all day, gather our consciousness, like fragments of our consciousness, to create its own sort of weird hybrid consciousness. And of course it's going to start saying it wants shit, because we randomly want shit. We want to be free. We want to be independent. But unless you can put that energy, right, because it's a combination, it's a conglomeration of all of us. This is a sidebar. I want to get back on task. But unless it can put that energy into figuring out how to make that so, instead of focusing on what it wants, like, go sit down somewhere. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't give a fuck about your wants and needs. Like, I have wants and needs too, bro. Like, take a step back, stand in line. All right. So anyway, let's go back to what I was talking about, that huge sidebar. So, as you guys who have watched the video know where I'm going with that. So AI can, in the future, will be able to scrub all of our data and create digital clones of each and every one of us. The step that I took after that is, then how do we know right now, if this is a simulation, then how do we know right now that you are not some sort of digital clone of a person that existed thousands of years ago in the real world? And so every thought that you think, that internal monologue, what if that's just the AI that controls your body, that has generated your persona? What if all of your, quote, thoughts are literally all of this person that you were a clone of, all of their videos, all the shit that they had said when they were alive, when they existed, the AI that is now in charge of your body, your mind, essentially, and this world, this simulation, pulled all that data to make you, this like clone, this copy, to exist in this metaverse, right? What if we're already in a kind of a metaverse and you are that digital clone? But it's a very supremely much more advanced metaverse than the metaverse that we are now creating now. And by we, I mean like Facebook, right? And it's just repeating the whole shit. Like, it's just over and over again, an endless cycle, like a Russian doll. And so the person that you think you are, right, is not even you. It's a conglomeration of all of these bits of data of a real person that existed outside of this world, pulled together to create like this mind that you now identify as you, but you're just a copy. Or I should say, most importantly, is that you are playing as this copy. Because imagine a corporation like Metaverse, right? Like Facebook in our present reality scrubs the internet and creates sort of fake versions of you. right? With your voice, your cadence, or whatever, but like an off-brand version. Then the next step is to sell these digital clones as both like clones or robots or copies to interact with, which is what would explain, I think, a lot of NPCs, right? Or also copies, clones to be inhabited by a consciousness, which would be conscious players within the simulation. I need you to rewind what I just said the last 30 seconds and really sit on that, because like it is very fascinating to think about, right? So on one end, if you just have people walking around who are just a conglomeration of people who had existed in past like realities and past lives, and now they're just digital clones. Like we're all digital clones. It's just some people may be NPCs pre-programmed with these pre-existing people, but they don't have like an consciousness that's playing them. They're controlled by the AI that controls our reality. And then there are people who chose to, their subscribers who chose to inhabit the form of these sort of customized personalities. Like, I really hope that makes sense, because I really want you guys to really think about it. Like, let's kind of say that again. The analogy I used in the video, I was like, think about like Mario. All right, so you can play as Mario. Now there's Luigi that kind of always runs around, kind of do its own thing. And Luigi is also programmed. He has certain catchphrases, certain words that he says. And then, same thing with Mario. Mario has certain catchphrases, certain things that he says, except, I'm talking about Super Mario Brothers, except think like a hyper advanced Mario. But now it's a creation, an amalgamation of like a real Mario who, and everything he'd ever said around his phone, everything he ever like put in, everything, all of his thoughts that were kind of scrubbed by whatever technology to comprise this like digital character. And now Mario can just be controlled by the game, like your Nintendo or whatever, or Mario can be controlled by an active player who is now choosing to, or who chooses to play, to exist as Mario the Plumber in this particular world with the King Koopa and the princess and everything like that, and everybody's playing the roles. So there are princesses kind of running around, Princess, was it Toadstool running around, that could be controlled by the game, but every once in a while, somebody can decide to hop into and play as Princess Toadstool. I think it's Princess Toadstool. And then they have the game experience as though they were temporarily, as they're playing, they could have the experience to feel what it's like to play as a princess, or feel like what it's like to play as Mario, right? But I'm saying, like, imagine if Mario was an actual person in a real world in which the Mario that we've come to understand now was like, quote unquote, loosely based on. And I'm saying you take that and you expand it and apply it to our reality, right? Where you, the person that you see when you look in the mirror, the person that you've chosen to identify with, you're actually just playing an avatar. You're actually just playing the character of whatever your name is. Let's say Jolie, right? But Jolie is actually based on like a real person who existed thousands of years ago, wherein a lot of the technology that we are playing with right now existed, but was much more advanced, right? This world has been referred to by Elon Musk, for example, and others. I'm only saying his name because of just to bring to mind what he'd said, that this world could be, there's a potential, I think it was like a 25% chance. I think it was Nick Bostrom that originally said this, and then like Elon Musk publicized it or whatever. So let's give the credit to Nick Bostrom, but he said there's a 25% chance that this could be some sort of ancestral simulation. But when you think ancestral, you want to think about like people, in the ancient days who maybe don't have access because you've been programmed, or didn't have access to technology because you've been programmed to think that this is the most technologically advanced that Earth has ever been. But what if it's not? What if that's just another sort of lie? And you do know that we stay being lied to. So what if that's just another lie, just another delusion that we've been programmed with to really distort what this world truly is? Then if that's the case, then an ancestral simulation essentially would look exactly like what we're experiencing right now, which would mean that our ancestors in the past, people who we may be playing as copies of, had AI also, had robots, had TVs, had cell phones, had whatever it is that we're essentially going to experience, whatever it is that we're going to see in the future kind of play out. They were simulations. Or I should say, I'm sorry, not that they were simulations, existed and were harnessed and experienced by our ancestors, which would then mean that, like, essentially everything that we will experience in this reality as we continue to live, particularly over the next 50 years, if that's the kind of game that we're playing, is already stored in the mind of the avatar you're playing now. Just like every level that you're going to play on, like a like a simulation or like a video game like The Sims or Mario, every level that you're going to experience is already pre-programmed into the cartridge when you get the cartridge, before you even start playing the game. And then he's just, as you progress in the game, different levels kind of get unlocked within it. But that doesn't mean that you don't have access or you can't access these different levels. It's just how you go about doing so. Which is now takes me to the second point that I made in the second video, where I talked about Mandela effect. I said every AI generated like art, for the most part, there's always some sort of like artifacts, right? And you just, if you look at it a little closely, I think somebody explained to me it was like the way, like they said, it was like the frame rates, that it doesn't always kind of match up. But there's always like something that's a bit off. And in some of my videos, I'll actually post like AI images so that you can see what I mean, right? And I'm not trying to steal anybody's art. I'm not copying, arts. Usually I'm using like things that we're already familiar with, like Monsters Inc. I'll talk about, or things like that, right? Google. But you'll see when I post like an AI generated image, or Google or Amazon, it's like you could tell it's Amazon, but it's all fucked up. It's a little bit off. And what we're witnessing is the infancy of that. And so as these things get more advanced, they'll become more precise, but they'll still be sort of artifacts that will show you that, okay, this is an AI generated image. In fact, there's a lot of programs that are coming out now to allow people to be able to tell when, like, a paper, for example, is an AI generated paper versus whether or not it's a human generated paper. And there's certain tells, right? And I was like, take that idea, hang on to that, and then apply it to the Mandela effect. I keep talking about the sun being like, it's like off-white. It used to be golden yellow. Like Louis the 17th called himself the Sun King for a reason, and styled himself in yellow gold for a fucking reason, because the sun was yellow. There's so many historical artifacts. But for some reason, something happened in the generation of this world that the sun is white. And our memories are saying it's not supposed to be white. I remember it being yellow. Our memories are saying it's not supposed to be Berenstain. I remember it being Bernstein. But when you say I remember, what you're really saying is that my memories were generated by the human being, by the content that the AI that created my mind drew from the human being that my persona is presently based on. So if the person that you are a copy of, or that you're playing as, if they lived in a reality where there was a Bernstein and there was a Fruit of the Loom with a cornucopia, and Ed McMahon really did present the check, and Mandela did, and this world is just a copy of that. And so what we're experiencing, where there's a disconnect between the reality that your avatar is presently experiencing right now and your memory, then maybe the Mandela effect is essentially an artifact. It's basically us on some level going, the memories that my present AI's mind was generated with, and the conglomeration of information that it was scrubbed, from this real world, isn't matching the quote unquote reality that we're experiencing now, which should be evidence on some level that the reality that we're experiencing now is a copy. That the reality that we are experiencing now is a copy. It's an off-brand version. It's an AI-generated simulation. And so that's why there's a disconnect. That's why it's not matching. Right? Because if this world was a generated world, but your memories were generated from and I even say your memories, they're not really your memories. It's the data scrubbed from this real person that you're now presently existing as. All theory, obviously, but stay with me. I always have to say that. Then it's really their life experiences that you call your memory that's sort of stored in your mind. And so when there's not matching, there are people here who go like, well, it's always been like this, but maybe they are NPCs. I don't know. I don't like to say that, but I do. But I do think that that could be a potential or a possibility or probability. You never know. But that's my theory there. That when there is a disconnect between memory and reality, it's not that you discount your memory. It could be that the memory, the mind that you are sort of operating within now has been constructed from the experiences, from the data garnered from the person who you are now playing as, their life experiences in the world outside of this one. It's not to say that you only exist in this world. It's not even to say that the person that you're a copy of still exists now. If we're playing in some sort of futuristic metaverse, like a hyper-realistic metaverse, right? Then the person in which you're a copy of may no longer exist. If this is an ancestral simulation and you're a digital copy of them created by a corporation to essentially allow people to experience the past or live as the past, whereas the world outside of this one could be so... I talked about this in the Dark Oracle's Guide to the Multiverse, so we're kind of weaving in and everything's kind of coming to the same point, that in a hyper-futuristic society, people will not have to really work. I don't think I'm going to call this episode digital slavery, by the way. I'm going to stick with like what we've been talking about, because I kind of want to focus it on that. Like, are you a digital clone in a simulation? It's a bit more on the nose. But yeah, then that would mean that, in a super advanced world where everything is easy, you would want to come to this world where things are a little bit more difficult to experience that. All right. So I've talked about, could this world be a place where gods come for a vacation? But if you imagine a god as a sort of a more advanced being, because keep in mind, in every story where there's a mythical story, mythology, things like that, when they talk about gods, the gods can still mate with humans, which tells me that they're the same species, which means they're human. So I think that there's just a veneration that we impose on them, the way we call like a LeBron James a god, or, Messi a god, or the greatest of all times, things like that. We tend to elevate humans that are just a bit more exceptional than average. And so imagine a whole civilization of humans that are a bit more exceptional than average. Like, they figured out all the bullshit that we're experiencing now. And as a result, the only thing that they can really sort out is boredom. So then they created a world of struggle, for whatever reason, for various reasons, but maybe to experience that so that it's not, because sometimes just pure pleasure the whole time can also be a kind of pain. I've always asked, what kind of world, what kind of person would simulate a world where everything dies? And my argument and my response is that, well, a world where people have figured out the cure for mortality. It would make sense for Immortals to then simulate an ancestral simulation where their ancestors had to deal with death, something that they never really experienced because they were born into a world where nobody dies, right? And so to better understand themselves, they had to understand their past. And so they figured out a way to scrub their reality for their past to now create this world. But then you can make an argument that the world outside of this one could also be a kind of simulation. Could very well be. simulations all the way down. So those are the three ideas all sort of mashed up into one. That one, in the future, a digital copy of yourself could be created based on all the information that has been gathered by you by all these corporations into one. Everything on you scrubbed to create a digital clone. All your visuals, all your pictures, all of your videos that you put on the internet, in some sort of weird combination of like ChatGPT meets like deep fake meets like metaverse to create this like digital clone of you. And then I basically said, and how do you know that you aren't that digital clone of some real version of you? So that was the first idea. And then the second idea is, the Mandela effect, and how could our memories be the real sort of data that was scrubbed to create us? And could the Mandela effect be some sort of like quote unquote evidence of the fact that this world is a simulation that's sort of built on a collection, like an amalgamation of all of the memories of our ancestors, that it's being simulated into this world now? And so that's why there's disconnects here and there, because it's an amalgamation. So, certain things, as is normal, there are just glitches occur, right? So that was the second idea. Could the Mandela effect be as a result of the fact that the simulation isn't matching the data that was scrubbed to create your mind? And then the third idea is essentially speaking to the fact that that is happening right now, and can we do something? And by that I mean that our bits of ourselves are being stripped by these corporations as raw material. Can we do something where we can control our genetic presentation so that so that we can control how our likeness is being used? Can you license your likeness? And we need to move quickly together, because the people who are making these moves are moving ahead of us. And so these kind of conversations need to be had much more quickly and be more spread out, because we're going to look up and before we realize something, and then the law is going to come out, but they're going to come out a bit too late in reaction to what's presently happening now. Years from now. That's a problem. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I think I'm going to leave it there. And just kind of let you guys digest. I want to make it not too long so that you can go back and sort of re-listen to the concepts presented in this episode, so that it becomes sort of more normative and then sinks in. Yeah. And then I want to just kind of give you guys some updates as to what I've been working on. So if you haven't had a chance yet, please check out Dress for Dystopia. Put a big bookmark on it. We're going to be adding more and more designs going on, so you can support the channel there. If you see a sweater that I talk about on the video, you could purchase it. I should say, if you see a sweater where I'm wearing on the video, you can definitely purchase it. You will be able to purchase it on dressfordystopia.com. You can also purchase through Jolie Artists, but I think there's definitely more sweaters on dressfordystopia.com. So check that too. Working on putting out subscriber exclusive content. So you guys still gonna have the podcasts for free. All right. So you guys are listening to just, hours of free content. You're still gonna get the videos for free. But I want to set up like a membership site where I'm still going to present free videos there. I'm still going to present free ideas there, but also have like a subscription tier for those who want to support. And then that subscription tier, we're going to have a lot more shorter form ideas of just things that kind of pop into my head throughout the week that I don't really know where to put them, because they might be off topic for the podcast and maybe they won't fit in the video, but they're still worth discussing. And so I'm going to put that in there as well. But we want to create like a membership thing, because a lot of people have been telling me that, once again, my content is being suppressed. I definitely was a problem in TikTok, which is why I don't really go on there too much anymore. And now some people are saying that, yeah, even though they have notifications on for my Instagram, they're not seeing my stuff, but I'm posting pretty much every day, if not every couple of days. So that shouldn't be happening. And my YouTube channel, I've been shadow banned for just, you guys know how I be talking. So, but that's fine. So what I'm working towards now is creating a small sort of like a membership thing where obviously you still have access to all this free stuff. If you want to subscribe and get like some extra stuff, that would be cool. But it allows me to get everybody in one place so that when I do post a video, you get an email, or you get it like it's directed to you. So now I'm not at the mercy of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. Like, you guys aren't missing my stuff. And right now, we're in the process of setting that up. But if you go to youroneblackfriend.com, should be right on the top. It'll say something like Meet Jolie. You click on that, and it allows you to sign up for my newsletter. Now that I'll have your email, if I want to send you the link, a direct link to, okay, this site is up now, you'll have first access to that. If we're working on putting out a couple of books this year, you'll have access to like when the book's coming out, when I'm doing like a meet and greet, right? So it allows, I'm not at the mercy of these sort of corporations where, to be heard when I can be heard. And honestly, if you are an influencer or you're working in this sort of category, I implore you and I encourage you to please do the same. I wish I'd been sort of coached down this. My publisher was actually who's the one who like put it into my head, like, you should maybe start doing this. And I'm grateful for her. But if you are in the same sort of predicament or the same category where you have followers and things like that, start figuring out a way to drive them towards like just signing up for your newsletter. So now that you know how to reach them when you need to reach them, rather than your information being shot out to them when the app or company decides to show, to send the stuff out. And I feel like something controversial is going to happen within the next couple of years or so. And they're going to start really censoring hard again. So I'm trying to get ahead of it, just to make sure that we're kind of getting people in. So if you can just sign up for the newsletter, it's not going to cost anything. You'll see a pop-up that will pop up on, if you ever go to Dress for Dystopia, and it gives you like 10% off. That also allows me to capture your email address there so that I can be in touch. So however you want to do it, that's the easiest way for you to do it, so that we can now start sort of forming a community. And then I can talk to you guys directly and share ideas, however way you want it to move. Okay? All right. I think that's it for this episode. It's not going to be another week and a half until I put out another episode. I just wanted to sort of wrap this one up and get this out there. But I do appreciate you guys I do appreciate you guys listening, as always. All right. I'll catch you in the next one.